All right, go ahead and have a seat and let me get situated up here. I've got multiple masks just in case, but I get to take mine off. If you're speaking, you get to take your mask off. So men, come on, you can do it. No, I'm going to really guard this. It's like I do get a chance to take the mask off for a moment. Oh, all right. Oh, you guys look great. Last week we were out of town. We went and visited the kids over in Korea for the first time in Blaine and Kelly we saw for the first time in 3 years, something like that. And so COVID, of course. We were tested 5 times in order to get over there and back out. And so I'm fairly positive I don't have COVID after 5 PCR tests in a row. Two of them were 13 hours apart. And so anyway, Korea, you want to talk about bureaucracy. And so you think, oh, we're wearing masks this morning, but it can always be worse, right? They're still under the only 2 people can eat together at a restaurant rule, which makes it difficult when there's 4 of us or more, right, to get together. And so, but it was great to see them, and of course see Aspen, see the grandkids and everyone. So we have an interesting journey here. I'm not acting excited, but I am really excited this morning. The reason I'm excited is we get a chance to finally start this study. I've been working on this since, way back in April, May, looking at the book of Deuteronomy. A couple of folks put together a great, it's actually a 30-lesson series. And then, so some different ones have contributed to putting together these 30 lessons. And then David Young out in Tennessee taught it at the beginning of the year. And I followed all along through that. And it was just such an eye-opening study. I thought, you know what? Let's do this as a life group series. We're gonna bring it down to 12 lessons instead of 30. So we're not going to stay in Deuteronomy for 30 weeks, but 12 weeks we're going to stay in Deuteronomy, Lord willing, here through September, October, November. And it's like, wow, the first time you hear Deuteronomy, I know what you think. I know what you're thinking, because I think the same thing. It's like, it's Old Testament. Oh no, it's the second law giving. Oh no, Edward's going to go through and talk all about laws again and what it means about Jesus. And you're thinking, no, are we really going to do that? But it's not like that. It really is a very practical study that still has implications for us as Christians today. And so a couple of things. One, if you've not received a handout, Daryl's going to go by right now and pass them out because I don't know what the word is, whatever that word is, to say, hey, you can do this. Take a handout. We'll even pass out notebooks if you'd like to put them in notebook, because there's multiple pages each week. There's 3 pages this week in the handout. And so, I know I'm going to stop it in a moment. There we go. And so, Randy's got some too back there, I think. Nope, somebody does. There he is. And so, Daryl's moving around with them. And so, he'll come on around. Daryl, come all the way over here to this side too. And so, Brian's going to get up and help too. Thanks. And so there's multiple pages. There's only a few blanks, but I've put all kinds of information on there. A little bit about where this study came from, and on it goes from there. I love it when I warble. So this is the theme, choose life. Moses, remember the spies went in, and they're like, the grapes are so big, it takes 2 people to carry them. And so that's the meaning of Deuteronomy. It's all about choose life. And so here we go. We're going to start with this study. Like I say, I think this is one of these times when we have a chance to just focus on something that is very powerful, something that's still current for today. And as you'll see in this study, it's something that Jesus loved. He loved this book. And so we should take a chance to study it a little bit. And so if you have a chance, read through the book of Deuteronomy on your own. But really, I'm going to have an assignment every week. And there's a whole page of stuff to do before next Sunday. So here we go, the book of Deuteronomy. If we're going to study the book of Deuteronomy, the first thing we've got to do, and is Barb Hillstrom here? Oh, there you are. Barb would agree with me. If you're going to study the book of Deuteronomy, you want to start with border collies. Amen. I got an amen finally from Barb there. And so let me pull this up because I'm going to play the sound on my phone at the same time you're watching it on the screen. But I want you to look at this. This is Pink the Border Collie. Pink won the Westminster, agility thing for dogs like 2 years in a row, which is unheard of, 2018, 2019. Let me show you a picture of Pink there. You can barely see it, but there's Pink. And Pink, we're going to watch Pink run here. But here's the thing about Pink the Border Collie. Border Collies in general. A Border Collie, this dog in particular, has been bred to obey the master. Like they work, right? They have a stare that scares sheep. And so this is what they do. They work. And we're going to get really dark. You can see the screen. You won't see me, but that's better. Watch the screen. And so I'm going to show you this video of Pink. But these dogs have been bred to do this. Matter of fact, if you don't, that's what vets recommend. Like if you go out to Barb's house, she's got 1,000 acres. It's not really that many, but it's a big old spread. And the reason is so her dogs can do their thing. And if these particular dogs, if they can't do their thing, they're not really happy. They're happiest when they are obeying the trainer, the master. And you'll see that in this video. It's such a great video of a dog and listen to what is said. And so here we go. I'm going to play this at the same time. See if I can get this thing going.
Exciting 16-inch class is Pink, the Border Collie, handled by Jennifer Crank from Pickerington, Ohio.
Pink wants to get the party started tonight.
That is it.
Stay. Okay.
Jennifer making sure Pink's in that contact zone. Jennifer's up ahead right there. Look at Pink fly.
You can't stay ahead of Pink for too long.
Stay. Good job. Look at the extension Pink is doing on these jumps. Just beautiful. Nice extension all the way around.
Pink's ahead of the pace. Through the weed poles.
Just stay smooth and clean.
Phenomenal job. And Pink will win it. By 2 seconds.
That was just sheer beauty. Beautiful lines. Jennifer out in front, Pink following. Pink saying, I got it. Gorgeous.
Okay, they're going to play it one more time and listen to the announcer.
This run here at the end.
This is just at the end.
Nothing's going to stop them. Nothing's going to stop them right here. Just beautiful. Look at that smile.
Not known to be much of a cuddler, but cuddling right there after a victory for the 16-inch division.
Did you hear the announcer? Did you hear what he said multiple times? He's like, it's just beautiful. Obedience can be a beautiful thing. It's just a dog, you're thinking. And so you look at that video and you think, wow, it's just a dog. I am not a dog. And yet there's something very beautiful about a well-trained, like this dog has been bred to do one thing, obey the master. It's just, when was this dog at its happiest? When it got to go. You could just see I've got to do this. And then when it got to do it, how excited it was, joyful it was to finally get to obey the trainer. And of course, it's unheard. I mean, the race is really short, and this dog won over 2 seconds, beat every other dog in the world at this sort of thing. And you're like, wow, that dog loves doing what it's doing. And so let's go now to our text. I want you to hear this in our text this morning, because that's really the message of Deuteronomy. It's all about the beauty of obedience. And so we're in Deuteronomy chapter 30. Let me get all my stuff situated here. There we go. We've got one more video at the end, but it won't have sound. So let me put that phone up. Oh, better leave it out there. Okay. And so, a couple of things here. Your spiritual genetics, it's not just dogs, it's us too. We have been built We are at our most joyful, happiest moment. God has made us to be obedient to him. That's the whole point of the book of Deuteronomy. The whole point of this book is you and I we're very similar to Pink. We are going to find our lives and we're going to live it to its fullest. We will thrive when we are being obedient to God. That's the message of the book. And so he's just saying to us, okay guys, he's saying to the Israelites, of course, chapter 30 here, he's saying you have a chance to thrive in this world as a nation of people, as individuals, as a group of people, my Israelites. If you will obey me, life will be awesome. And so that's the message of the book. And I think that message is still true for us. Like in our marriage, will we thrive in our marriage if we obey God? You know we will. In our finances, in our relationships with other people, at our work, in our playtime, just wherever you can think. It's the same story for us. I'm not a dog, but I think it's even more powerful than what Pink can do when you and I obey the Lord. And so let's begin here in chapter 30. I'm going to put some of the words up, and I'm going to start in verse 30. And so we've got a little bit of the words before this. And so, let me just say something too about Moses, because I've got him up there. Moses is going to talk about the grapes, of course. And he's like, this land is flowing with milk and honey. And if you obey God, God will make your grapes so heavy, it'll take two of you to carry them. That's what obedience does. That's what God's trying to say to us. He's trying to say, so Moses does an interesting, the book of Deuteronomy, and if you see it in your notes there, we're going to talk about it in a moment. It's really just 3 sermons and a song. So Moses is going to sing his final bit to them. He's going to start with a sermon, and then the middle sermon is the bulk of the book, and then a very short third sermon, and then he sings to them. And so if you don't pay attention, I'm going to get Devin up here and I'll sing to you. And so hopefully I won't have to get that far and we can just stay talking. But Moses actually sung, of course, this song to them, and then he dies and they go into the promised land. So that's the book. So we're going to go back through those sermons, but here first, just look at, this whole text here starts in about verse 14, but I'm going to read the head of that, verse 11. Here's what he says. For this is the commandment which I command you today, that is not too difficult for you, nor is it out of reach. It's not in heaven that you should say, who will go up to heaven for us to get it for us and make us hear it, that we may observe it? Nor is it beyond the sea, so that you should say, who will cross the sea for us to get it for us and make us hear it, that we may observe it? So he starts by saying, this is the commandment that I'm giving you today. It is not out of your reach. It's not too difficult. This stuff is not like impossible. You don't have to memorize the Bible and go to some guru and then meditate for several years or like practice over and over. It's like this command is not beyond your reach. You don't have to sail across the sea to grab it. It's like right here, he says. Moses is saying to them, it is not difficult. The word, verse 14 now, is very near you, in your mouth, in your heart, that you may observe it. See, I have set before you today life and prosperity and death and adversity. And that I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that you may live and multiply, and that the Lord your God may bless you in the land where you are entering to possess it. So you hear what he's saying? He's saying, it's right here. It's right with you. It's a choice that we make. So he says to them, choose life. And that's our message. So this morning, this very much like Exodus. We looked at Exodus and I used those lessons, and thanks Jimmy for concluding the last one. These last few lessons on Exodus was really just to ramp us up to this point that obedience to God is where we flourish. That's the kind of life he wants us to live. And if we will be obedient to him, if we will choose life, God will give it to us. And it'll be in abundance. And so it's a very simple message, really, but it's very profound, isn't it? So this is at the end of his preaching, chapter 30, that he really brings this up, this choose life business. Are you going to choose life or not? And so, first blank now. So here we go. I've got some blanks for you.
There was the text up there. Therefore, choose life. And then, of course, all the great things that will happen because of it. And so here's the first blank. And I think this is important for us. Americans, of course, we talked about this in the Exodus lesson. Americans struggle with this concept, and I can't stay still, so we're going to move around. There we go. Americans struggle with this. We generally dislike the word obedience. When you and I hear it, I struggle with it. That's one reason I'm doing this lesson. It's like, this is a lifetime struggle, right? It's like all of us like to be the what? Secretly, down deep inside our hearts. We like to be the rebel. We like to be the one that kind of bends the rules. And so I like the way it's written up here. We prefer instead to color outside the lines. It's like, I don't want to be boxed in. I want to color outside the lines. I like being different. But have you ever noticed everything about our lives works out well when we obey, and when we're not obedient, things don't work out so well. So all the folks that tell us that, and back in that Exodus lesson, if you remember, everything from like Outback restaurant that says no rules, right? Remember that? It's like, that's their motto, no rules. And you're like, just try that when you walk out without paying. They're going to say, well, no, we do have a rule or two. One of them is you have to pay for your food. And so it's like, but we yearn for this in some ways. And so God understands that. He's like, we have these reasons why we want to bend the rules or go outside the rules. And so the book of Deuteronomy is meant to motivate us to obey God. Okay, you can't hardly see it. It's in your sheet also, but this I took in, I don't remember when we were there, 2020, I believe it was. Sheila and I are standing on Mount Nebo right here, and they have a sign. You really can't see it, but that's the Dead Sea over here, and the Jordan River's going right through there, and that's Jericho, and way off over there is Jerusalem. And this sign just kind of shows you where all the different, so you can line yourself up and see the different towns, cities across the Dead Sea from Mount Nebo. So Mount Nebo is where Moses is standing. So at Mount Nebo, Moses is going to deliver these sermons right before they cross into the Promised Land. And so it's from Mount Nebo, as they're seeing off into the Promised Land, that Moses is going to deliver his message to them. And then, of course, he's going to die, and Joshua's going to lead them on into the Promised Land. And so that's where we're going to be. Can't help, I got to show this. Deuteronomy. So here we go. What does it mean? And so just some blanks there. We're going to kind of, we're wrapping up the lesson now. That's all I really want to introduce you with is where we're going, book of Deuteronomy. Why are we going through this? We want to choose life. We want to see that obedience to God is actually a flourishing kind of life. A couple of things about the book. Deuteronomy itself just means the second law. It's the second law giving. It's the third most quoted book in the New Testament, right behind Isaiah and the Psalms. But for Jesus, he quotes it more than every other book. It seems to be Jesus' favorite book. He quotes it all over the place. And so it makes sense, doesn't it? He's a God, he's the Son of God, and he understands what it means to be obedient to his Father. And so out of these 5 books of the Torah, right, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the last one is the one that we're going to study, and it's the second law giving. Obedience to God. What does it do? We're going to summarize now, and we'll be finished in our lesson. I think this is the heart of our lesson right here. Obedience to God offers life to you and your descendants. That's what the book says. Moses is like saying to us, it's not just about you. It's about your children. It's about your grandchildren. It's about our children that are in this room. It's like, how do they learn obedience? Think about how we train our children about things like, if you touch the stove, it will burn you when it's hot. Think about all the different ways that we're trying to teach those lessons. And so God is saying to us, if we are obedient to him, it's not just us. It's not just our lives. It's our descendants' lives. And it goes on and on and on. And so 3 sermons he does this. And we won't take the time, but we could start way back in chapter 1. He does it almost in every chapter. Chapter 1, verse 12. Chapter 3, 4, and 5. And on it goes. It's like Moses does this over and over throughout the book, where he basically says, choose life. Be obedient to God.
Good things will happen, not only to you, but to your descendants, if you will choose life. And so this is the heart of our lesson. So I think it's a worthy book to study. I think I have to work on my obedience and what I'm doing in my life. And I think as a church, we need to make sure that we are being obedient to God. Because this is how we flourish. This is how we become a church that is a kind of church that flourishes in the promised land. Think of us here at the moment like the Israelites. We're at Mount Nebo. He says, look out there. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. That is always the way it is. For every church in the world, this is the way God works. God has the church, this group of his people, standing on Mount Nebo, and he always gives us this choice. He gives every group. I don't care if we're standing in Bombay, India, or if we're in Peru, or if we're anywhere in the United States. It's like he looks at the church and he says, here you are. If you will obey me, your church will flourish. Your descendants will flourish. Good things will happen. If you don't, bad things will happen. And I'll have to destroy you in the end. And the church disappears. It's just it's the same pattern. It's like the book is meant to show us this is the way God operates. And so, I can't wait till we get to it's like a great study on the commandments, the 10 commandments that we'll get to. I've been waiting to get to that one. Just some of the things we're going to do in the future. Obedience is a good word. It's actually a beautiful word. When we are obedient, we're doing what we were designed to do, which was follow the teachings of God. And so, a couple of places. I'm in chapter 11 here. Just wanted to highlight some of these where he does this over and over. Verse 13, it shall come about if you listen obediently to my commandments. If you love the Lord your God and serve him with all your heart and all your soul, then he will give the rain for your land in its season, the early, the late rain, that you may gather in your grain and your new wine and your oil, and he will give you grass in your fields for your cattle, and you shall eat and be satisfied. He does that over and over, almost every chapter. It's like, if you will do this, then good things will happen. Over and over, he promises these rewards. And so a little side point here, just to bring up, something about rewards. You'll see it at the bottom of my screen. There's no blanks for it, but just a reminder, there's extrinsic rewards, right? The extrinsic rewards, the outside rewards. Like, I work and I get a paycheck, and that's kind of like, they're not really connected other than this is my reward. It's what I call getting a cookie. It's like you're obedient. The dog, of course, has all kinds of rewards, right? And later on in that interview with the trainer, they talk about what's the most difficult thing for the dog to do, and they talk about what's difficult for a border collie to do, and then the trainer talks about that's where I reserve the most favored treats. This is the highest reward. I give the best reward and it turns out it's that little thing where it goes back and forth between the sticks. And so if it does that right, it gets a huge reward, the little doggy. And so it's like, yeah, we get it. There's external rewards. One's like, I do what's right and I get a cookie. And then, of course, there's the intrinsic rewards. And we're going to see in the book both rewards. And God uses both rewards, doesn't he? It's like sometimes he uses these internal rewards, like you master a skill. And the only reward is you get to be really good at that skill. Like maybe you practice some martial art for a while, and then, all right, you get a little black belt, but that's just a little black cloth belt. Not much reward there. But it's the mastery of a skill, isn't it? It's the ability to do that. Or you practice some musical instrument, and then it's the ability to play it. You may never get paid for playing it, but you master a skill. And so there's the beauty of internal things. And so obviously this is a higher reward, and it's a stronger reward, and it's a reward that is also mentioned in the book. And so we'll get into all that as we go through the book, just wanting to put it up there. Obedience to God offers life to us as well as our descendants. What else? Obedience to God sets you free from the big three: sin, sensuality, and selfishness. That's actually in your blanks, because we're going to revisit that throughout the book. I'm giving you an overview here for a second. It's like we're going to hit those things, because these are the things that thwart us from being obedient to God. We become obedient to sin, to sensuality, to selfishness, and how those, of course, make our lives miserable in the end. And so when we're not obedient to God and we're obedient to these things instead, disobedience, of course, causes a curse on yourself and on your descendants. That's just a part of it, isn't it? It's like, we all know this is true. If I fall into the trap of disobedience, then my life goes in a terrible way, but my descendants end up paying the penalty for that. And that's a part of the book. Think about all the different ways this works out. I think about this when it comes to something as simple as practicing good money management. It's like, you practice good money management, and what's the intrinsic reward to that? There's some extrinsic rewards. Maybe you get to use your money wisely and spend it on something you weren't going to spend it on before. But internally, what happens? You learn the lesson of contentment. So there's an example of those two rewards at work. It's like, okay, I learned this valuable obedience within finance, and then, wow, I actually don't have to take out a big loan. And secondly, I learned what it means to be content with what God's given me. And so that lesson comes up over and over in the book as we go through it. And so grab something now, if you haven't already grabbed a pen, because I want you to go this last page now and pull up it's the 10 steps, and I'm going to pull it up too, because I'm skipping over some of the information. There's also a chronology of the land of Israel over time, but you'll see the thing called strengthen your obedience. And so here's your assignment for this week. And our lesson's finished. It goes like this. Oh, and by the way, that's just 1 John 2:16 talk, isn't it? Right? The desire of the flesh, the desire of the eyes, the arrogance, what it does in our lives. So here we go. There's 10 of them. I'm going to highlight a couple of them. And so here's what I want you to do this week. This is your assignment. Come back next Sunday, and we'll talk more about it. But this is just this week's assignment. All you need to do, number one, identify 3 areas where you need to strengthen your obedience. I've given you an example. I don't know how many examples there, a whole bunch. I need to forgive someone. I need to disciple somebody. I need to end some bad habit. I need to join a small group. I need to stop trying to control others for my happiness. Whatever is your gig, think of only 3. I don't want you writing down a whole book, just 3. So identify 3 in your life. That's your assignment this week. And then what are you going to do with them? Number 2, this week spend 5 minutes each day asking God to prioritize your 3. And so this week, just spend 5 minutes each day. Ask God to help you prioritize your 3 areas. So the first thing you do is pick 3 areas, and then ask God for this week to prioritize them. Don't decide what your big one is yet. Don't decide what you're going to work on yet. Right now, just pick 3, and then ask God to prioritize those for you. Ask Him every day for the next week till we get back together. And so here we go. Number 1, where do you need to strengthen your obedience? If you're like me, you have a whole bunch of them. It's just the way life is. I love thinking outside the box, but I also like sometimes, unfortunately, going out there and wandering off on my own, right? And so how do I overcome that? And so how do I learn obedience to God? Because if you're like me also, every time we wander off, we've gotten into big trouble, haven't we? And so what are your 3 that you're struggling with? I don't know what they are, but I have a feeling you do. And so think about your 3. Number 2, pray about them. Ask God to help you understand which ones are really important. And number 3, you need to actually visualize this. What I'd really love to do is walk around. I can't help it. Sorry, guys. We're going to have to do it. So if I'm not tall anymore like I was up there on that podium, and thanks, Richard, for making it taller. But anyway, number 3, visualize what will happen in 20 years. You got to do this in both ways. You got to visualize this. Like, first you got to visualize what will happen if I stay on my current pathway of disobedience. What will happen? I call that the allow yourself to feel the pain of disobedience moment. It's like, have you ever done that? It's a great technique. It's like, wow, if I allow myself to continue to be financially irresponsible, what will my life look like in 20 years? I won't be able to retire till I'm 105. Oh, that's a painful experience. I'll have to keep working for the boss till I'm 105, right? Experience the pain for a moment. And then on the other hand, allow yourself to feel the blessing of obedience. What will happen if you are not disobedient in that area? What would your life look like? And so take a moment here. Identify 3. Ask God to prioritize them. Number 3, visualize what will happen in 20 years if you are either or. See, that's what Moses did with them. He's like basically saying, if you're obedient, look at what will happen. Matter of fact, when we get into the laws, remember the law stuff? Remember the year of Jubilee? It's like, Moses tells them, if you will be obedient, there will be 3 years where you don't even have to plant or harvest. Because I will bless you with so many crops that you'll have the year of Jubilee, you'll have the 49th year, you'll have the 50th year. It's like you'll get to go multiple years, because I will bless you so much. And so you play that out. But if you disobey, then the crops will fail. And so you play that out. Number 4, by next Sunday, we're going to come back together and we're going to talk about your decision. Like, which one do you need to strengthen? What are these 3 areas? I won't make you say it out loud to all of us, but still, you need to come prepared in your own mind with your own, okay, what do I need to work on? And for some of you, of course, that means, right, like, we're not saying you're going to have to do all of this cold turkey. In other cases, right, you start off small, and it takes years of working on it, right? And so don't expect this to happen overnight. But just some last thoughts there. There's 10 total things. Number 5, move quickly to embrace the resources you need. We're going to talk about that next week. A life group, a good book, a new calendar, a trusted friend, whatever it takes to help you in this obedience journey. Number 6, you're going to need to pray about it and ask God to work. And that means His Holy Spirit working in your life. So we need the power of the Holy Spirit to help us. We're going to celebrate some wins. We're going to, like number 7, I love that one. Number 8, get back up from every fall. If you fall down, what do you got to do? You got to get up, right? It's 100 times fall, 100 times get up. That's a part of learning this obedience thing. And so we're going to work on this together. I think this will be beneficial for us as a church and as individuals, that if we will go on this journey together of working on our disobedience and strengthening our obedience to God, I think God will give us a huge 2022. So that's what I want to use this for, is to lead us as we go through this period of, we're not in the wilderness, we're at Mountain States Children's Home. But if you've been at the building the last week or 2, we're in the wilderness building-wise. It's like there's very little left of the building, it seems like, that's not in chaos. Every day, it's like I expect something to fall apart. Like, oh, look, there went the internet. Oh, look, there goes the electricity is what I kind of expect next. It's going to that's the way it works with building construction. And so you're like, wow, we're at this moment where we're going to have this, God's blessing us with all the things, right, to be a great church for Him. So as we think about the future, I know that us saying, wow, we've got the money and the resources and we got a brand new building, therefore we'll be a great church, that's not going to work. That's not the way it works, right? The way it works is you and I decide we are going to be obedient to God. That's what the book of Deuteronomy says. If you will be obedient to God, great things will happen in the future. So I believe that's true. If we decide to do this right now, during these next 3 months, then we need to prepare for a great celebration next year, because God's going to bless us because of that. And how do I know that's true? Because that's what the book says. That's what the book teaches. It's saying if you're obedient to me, great blessings will occur, whatever that might be, whatever rewards He decides to give us. And so we need to prepare for that. Last little bit there. It's at the beginning. I think I had it in your notes.
maybe, talks about, the ship that will not obey its captain will have to obey the rocks. Isn't that true for churches? If we don't obey God, something's going to come along we will obey, and it's not going to be good for us. So I want to go God's route. Last video now, I don't have the sound, but it's Molly the boxer, and Molly the boxer is not pink, right? Molly hasn't been trained diligently from birth and all the different things that Pink has been bred to do, like ingrained in the genetics of being that kind of world champion type border collie. But Molly is on her way. And so this is a video of Molly after going to obedience school. And I just want you to notice something. I'll highlight it as we look at it. But here is Molly, the boxer. And you may not be able to see it, but there's actually a boxer down there by the lady in pink. And so she, of course, says, she gets her thing, and then the trainer says, "You ready?" And the judge, she says, "Yep." So she says, "Stay" to Molly. So now Molly stays. Molly's looking around. And then she says, "Come." And then she's like, "Right here." And then Molly's back sitting again. It's like, Molly is a joyful, obedient dog. Like obedience, like that joy that Molly sustained of being obedient to her master. It's like, wow, I wish I could encapsulate that more in my own life. It's like, I wish I could see that when I'm obedient to God, great things happen. And it's the most joyful moment in my life. Do we want to be God's kind of people? If we do, and if we want to experience the great joy that he gives, we'll be obedient to him. That's the message of the book. Isn't that a simple message? It's like, we as humans want to make this stuff more complex. But I'm back to that chapter 30, verse 11. It's not like too far for you to grasp. It's like I can just hear Moses saying, "Don't you teach the 2-year-olds this? Don't we teach the 3-year-olds, the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, the 50-year-olds? Isn't this a lesson that all of us know is true?" It's like we know we are at our best. We are reaching heights we could never attain as a church and as individuals when we are obedient to God. And so I think it's even more joy than that. Yeah, Molly looked pretty happy there, but I think this is when we find life abundant. And not only for us, but for our descendants. It actually carries on our obedience. It's like because we are obedient, blessings flow to the next generation. And so as we think about where am I at? What do I need to work on? What do you need to work on? Make a list this week. Go through this. Would you join me with that in going through, giving yourself a hard look? Where am I being rebellious? What am I doing that I know is stopping me from reaching my potential? And make a list and pray about it. And then let's get back together and we'll start up our study next week back at the beginning of the book as we work our way through a really profound book. A profound book of, wow, Moses is crying out to us, even from Mount Nebo today. Moses says to us, will you be his people? Will you be obedient to him? If you will, the grapes will be heavier than you can carry. The grain will sustain you through the harsh winter. On and on the list goes. Let's stand and sing.